Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to do something a little bit different, and the hope is that I can make one of these review videos for all of the different units videos that I have on my channel. So today we're going to be doing a review of the solving linear equations section or playlist of videos. All right, so we're going to jump right in. Might be a little bit of a longer video because I'm going to run through about 21 different questions and how to solve them. So a little bit different in terms of the teaching, right? I'm not going to go through the concept initially and then work on examples like I normally do. We're just going to jump right in and use this kind of like as a practice set. So if you want to pause and stop the video each time, see if you can solve the question, then play it and see what the answer is and how I explain it, that might be a good strategy. So let's go ahead and dive right in with number one. Number one says 13 equals x plus 8, and then it says what step do we use to solve the equation? So we are going to subtract 8 from both sides, right? So that would be 13 minus 8, which is 5, and we're going to get x is equal to 5. So now what step did we use to solve the equation? We subtracted 8 from both sides, right? All right. Number two, we have x divided by 8 equals 4, and what step do we use to solve this equation? Well, if we want to solve for x, the step that we would do is we would multiply both sides by 8. So that's going to give me x equals 32. So our answer would be 32 because 4 times 8 is 32. And the step that we used was we multiplied both sides by 8. All right. Number three, we have a couple different operations now. We have negative 6 equals x plus 5 all divided by 2. So I'm going to first multiply both sides by 2. That's going to get rid of that 2. And then we have negative 6 times 2. So on the left side of the equation, we get negative 12. Now that's equal to x plus 5. And now we just need to subtract 5 from both sides to solve for x. Negative 12 minus 5 would be negative 17. So we could write x is equal to negative 17. All right, number four, they give us a polygon, and it tells us the sum of the angle measures is 540 degrees. We want to write and solve an equation to find the value of x. So the sum of the angle measures, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So sum means let's add those together, and it is 540. Well, in a word problem, that word is means equals, right? So we could say 92 plus 3x plus 8 plus 2x plus 10 plus x plus 20 plus 4x is equal to 540. So now we can just combine our linear terms, or our terms that have an x, and we can also combine our constants. So let's highlight, we have 3x plus 2x plus x plus 4x. So that's 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 1 is 6, plus 4 is 10. So we have 10x. Then if we highlight our constants here, we have 92, 8, 10, and 20. Well, 92 plus 8 would be 100, plus 10 is 110, and plus 20 would be 130. And now that's equal to 540. Now we can subtract 130 from both sides. So now we have 10x is equal to 410. And now we can divide both sides by 10 to get x is equal to 41. All right. Let's move on. Number five, we have 5 minus, and then in parentheses, 3k minus 4, and that's equal to 12. Now this negative sign we need to distribute. So that's 5, and then minus 3k plus 4 is equal to 12. Okay, the reason we do that is because that's like multiplying by negative 1. So we don't see the 1 there, but it is understood to be there when there's a negative sign out in front of parentheses like that. So we're multiplying negative, or negative 1, so we have to distribute it. Now on the left side, we have 5 plus 4, so that's 9, minus 3k is equal to 12. We can now subtract 9, so negative 3k equals 3. We divide both sides by negative 3, and we get k is equal to negative 1. All right. Number 6, we have to distribute both of these. So negative 4 times 3 would be negative 12. Negative 4 times 2x would be minus 8x. 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So we have negative 12 minus 8x equals 6x minus 15. Let's go now and solve for our variables. So I'm just going to say let's add 8x here. So we get negative 12 is equal to 14x minus 15. Then I'm going to add 15 to both sides. Okay, so we cancel that there. Negative 12 plus 15 is going to give me 3. So we have 3 equals 14x. We divide both sides by 14, and we're going to say our answer is x equals 3/14. Okay. All right, for number 7, it tells us we want to determine the number of solutions. So we can go ahead and solve and then just see if we're going to have one solution, no solution, or infinitely many. So let's distribute our -2. So that's -8x minus 6 equals -16 minus 8x. All right, so now let's say I wanted to combine my linear terms, my x terms. So let's add 8x to both sides. But what happens? Cancels out on the right, cancels out on the left, and we're left with -6 equals -16. So our variables canceled out on both sides. We have a statement to evaluate, is it true or not? Well, -6 is not equal to -16, so that is not true. Therefore, there are no solutions. Okay. All right. Number 8, same thing. We're going to determine the number of solutions. So let's distribute to simplify. 3 times 2 is 6, minus 3y. Distribute our -2, -6y minus 8. And let's go ahead and add 6y to both sides. So that will give me 6 plus 3y equals -8. Now I'm going to subtract, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Okay, let's come over here. So now we have 3y is equal to -14. We divide by 3, and we get y is equal to -14/3, which just tells us there is one solution. So that would be our answer there, because it asks us to determine the number of solutions, right? There's one solution. All right, number 9, we have absolute value now, but we have some operations happening to the absolute value that we want to undo before we write our two related linear equations. So I would actually start off by subtracting 8. So now we have 9 times the absolute value of 4p plus 2 is equal to 27. And then I would divide both sides by 9. So now we have absolute value of 4p plus 2 is equal to 3. So now I'm going to come over here and here, and we're going to write our two related linear equations, because what's inside the absolute value, 4p plus 2, is either equal to 3 or it is equal to -3. And now we can solve. So if I subtract 2, we get 4p equals 1. We divide by 4, so one of our solutions is 1/4. Over here we subtract 2. 4p is equal to -5. We divide by 4, so we would say p is equal to -5/4. So two solutions there, 1/4 and -5/4. All right, number 10. Absolute value equals absolute value. So just like we did a minute ago, the absolute values, they're either equal to each other or they are opposites of each other. So I would write one as 4 times p minus 3 equals 2p plus 8. So that's the one where I'm saying they're just equal to each other, right? The other one, I typically say let's keep the left side the same, but let's make the right side opposite. Okay, so I have the opposite of 2p plus 8. So once we distribute here, we would have 4p minus 12 is equal to 2p plus 8. And I'm going to subtract 2p. So 2p minus 12 equals 8. Let's add 12. So we get 2p is equal to 20. We divide both sides by 2, and we get p is equal to 10. All right, now let's do the other one. Let's solve that one. So this once again would be 4p minus 12 once we distribute the 4. Now here let's distribute this negative. So this is -2p minus 8. So let's add 2p to both sides. So we get 6p minus 12 is equal to -8. Let's add 12 to both sides. That would be 6p is equal to 4. We divide both sides by 6, and we get p is equal to 2/3. Right? So two solutions there. P is 10 and p is 2/3. All right, number 11 says we want to find the extraneous solution of the equation. So remember, extraneous is an apparent solution that when plugged back into the original absolute value, it does not satisfy the original equation. So we have 2x plus 6 is either equal to 4x or 2x plus 6 is equal to -4x. So let's say we want to subtract 2x. So we get 6 is equal to 2x. We divide by 2, and we get x equals 3. That's one of our possible solutions. Here, if I subtract 2x, we get 6 is equal to -6x, and we divide by -6, and we get x equals -1. So now we have two possible solutions. One of them is extraneous. Well, whenever I have an absolute value that's equal to a variable or the product of a number and a variable, we do not want our absolute value to be equal to a negative number. So if I plug in 3 for x, then that's going to say absolute value equals positive 12. That's okay, especially because if I plug in 3 on the inside of the absolute value, it's 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 plus 6 is 12, right? So it makes sense. But if I plug in negative 1 for x, it's going to tell me that the absolute value of something is equal to 4 times negative 1, which is negative 4, which means this answer here is my extraneous solution, because when I plug it back in for that x, it tells me that my absolute value is equal to a negative number. And we know that absolute value represents distance on a number line, so it can't be negative, okay? All right, number 12, absolute value. So we have they're either equal to each other or they are opposites of each other. So now we solve. Here on the left, what happens when we subtract x? Eliminate, eliminate. Is negative 2 equal to 4? No, right? So there's no solution, not for the entire absolute value equation, but for that one related linear equation, which just means I'm going to go solve this other related linear equation. If we get a solution there, we have one solution to the absolute value equation. So we get x minus 2 is equal to negative 4 minus x. So let's say we want to add x. So we get 2x minus 2 is equal to negative 4. We add 2. We'll come over here. 2x is equal to negative 2. We divide by 2. We get x is equal to negative 1. And that looks good, right? We get x equals negative 1. So we had one of our related linear equations that was no solution, but the other one gave us a solution. So there is only one solution to that absolute value, and it would be negative 1. All right, number 13. We have now a literal equation. So negative 4x plus y equals negative 4y plus 8x. We want to solve it for x, which means we just wanted to say x equals when we're done. Well, I'm going to get my x terms on the same side, or at least try to combine them, right? So let's say I want to add 4x to both sides. So now I have y is equal to negative 4y plus 12x. Now let's move this 4y over here. So we get 5y is equal to 12x, and now we want to solve for x. So let's divide both sides by 12, and we're going to get x is equal to 5y over 12, or we could say 5/12 y, but either one of those would be good. We know it's solved for x because the final equation says x equals. All right, number 14, x minus 9 plus 2wx equals y. We want to solve for x. So I'm going to add this 9 to my other side. Now it's not going to combine with the y because those are two different terms, but we could just write y plus 9 on the right side. So x plus 2wx equals y plus 9. Now what I'm going to do is factor out this x. So if I factor it out, x times what is x? Well, that's 1. X times what is 2wx? That would be 2w. Now I can subtract both sides, or excuse me, divide both sides by 1 plus 2w, and I get my solution because this entire expression will cancel out, and we get x equals y plus 9 over 1 plus 2w. All right, number 15. Absolute value, but it's a literal equation, so a little bit challenging. It says we wanted to solve this for c. So we know that cx plus d, it's either equal to e, or cx plus d is equal to the opposite of e. So now let's solve. We're trying to solve for c, so let's subtract d. So we get cx equals e minus d. Let's divide both sides by x. So we get c is equal to e minus d, all divided by x. And that would be one of our solutions. The other one, let's subtract d. So now we have cx equals negative e minus d. And let's divide both sides by x. Okay, so now we get c is equal to negative e minus d over x, and that would be how we could solve that absolute value equation for c. All right, number 16, we're buying 8 gallons of gasoline at $C per gallon, and we pay $25.28. We want to write an equation to find the price of 1 gallon of gas, and then find the price of 1 gallon. Well, we're buying 8 of them, and it's C dollars per gallon. So that's 8 times C, which we could write as 8C. And it says our total pay was $25.28. So that's our equation that we could write for our total cost. And now let's just figure out what C is, because that would be the price per gallon. So let's divide by 8, and that's going to tell me that the cost is $3.16 per gallon. All right, number 17. We have an essay. The minimum is that we can write is 375 words, and the maximum that we can write is 425 words. We want to write an absolute value equation that represents the minimum and the maximum number of words. What I do, or what I tell my students, is just remember absolute value of x minus the middle is equal to the distance. Okay, now what I mean by that is the two values we have, 375 and 425, those are like the solutions to the absolute value equation. So we're trying to write an absolute value equation that, when solved, would give us those two solutions. So let's think about what is the middle or the average of 375 and 425. Well, 375 and 425, that's going to be 800, right? If we add those together. So 400 would be the middle. So now we can say x minus 400. And now the distance, what I mean by distance is how far are 375 and 425 from 400? Well, that's 25, right? That would be the distance. So that would be our equation. Now, if we thought about, okay, let's check that. Well, we would say x minus 400 is either 25 or negative 25, right? And we would add 400 to solve those. Well, 25 plus 400 is 425, and negative 25 plus 400 is 375. So it would give us the correct solutions. So that is how we would write our absolute value equation. All right, number 18, absolute value of 4x minus 5 is equal to 19. So just a standard absolute value equation here. 4x minus 5 is either 19, or 4x minus 5 is negative 19. So I'm going to add 5 and solve both of these related linear equations. So we get 4x equals 24. We divide by 4, we get x equals 6. Here, if we add 5, we get 4x is equal to negative 14. That would be correct, right? We divide both sides by 4. So we get x is equal to negative 14 over 4, which we could reduce to negative 7 over 2. Or if you wanted to write it as negative 3/5, negative 3.5 or 3.5, that would work as well. All right, number 19. Once again, we're going to find the extraneous solution. So 3x plus 18 is either equal to 6x, or 3x plus 18 is equal to negative 6x. So here, if I subtract 3x, we get 18 is equal to 3x. Divide by 3, we get x is equal to 6. Here, if I subtract 3x, we get 18 is equal to negative 9x. We divide by negative 9, and x is equal to negative 2. Now, once again, when substituted back in for x, which one, 6 or negative 2, would make this say absolute value equals a negative? Well, that would be negative 2, right? So negative 2 would be our extraneous solution. We'll write that here. Right, because when we plug it in right there for x, it's going to be 6 times negative 2, which is negative 12. So it's going to tell us that absolute value equals a negative, and we know that to be not true. All right, number 20. We have 2x minus 4 is either equal to 2x plus 10, or 2x minus 4 is equal to the opposite of 2x plus 10. Well, notice when we subtract here, our x's cancel, cancel. We get negative 4 is equal to 10, and no, it is not, right? So there's actually no solution for this related linear equation. Now let's check on the second one. So 2x minus 4 is equal to negative 2x minus 10. So I would add 2x to both sides. So that's going to cancel the negative 2x on the right side. On the left, we have 2x plus 2x would be 4x. Minus 4 equals negative 10. Let's add 4 to both sides. So we get 4x is equal to negative 6. We divide both sides by 4, so we're going to get x is equal to negative 3 over 2, negative 6 over 4, negative 3 over 2. Or you could say negative 1.5. So either of those options would be good. All right, and our last problem to solve for this compilation video for solving linear equations, we have a equals 2x plus 6xz. We want to solve for x, okay? Well, I can go ahead and factor out my x because we have two terms that have an x. They're not the same, so we can't actually combine them. So let's factor out the x. X times what is 2x? That'd be 2. And x times what is 6xz? That would be 6z. Now we have x isolated for the most part, so we can divide both sides by 2 plus 6z. 2 plus 6z on both sides. Okay, so now we can say x is equal to a divided by 2 plus 6z. All right, so I hope that video helped you out. I hope you feel in a good place in terms of the review for solving linear equations.